I want to run through straight 45 seconds of the Lincoln Project's recent ad on Donald Trump entitled "Trump is Not Well," and then make a few comments on the second run of it, and then invite other people to comment as well. So here we go. I will just play this straight through for once.
Something's wrong with Donald Trump. He's shaky, weak, trouble speaking, trouble walking. So why aren't we talking about this? And why isn't the press covering Trump's secretive midnight run to Walter Reed Medical Center? Why do so many reporters who cover the White House pretend they can't see Trump's decline? The most powerful office in the world needs more than a weak, unfit, shaky president. Trump doesn't have the strength to lead, nor the character to admit it. We're not doctors, but we're not blind. It's time we talk about this. Trump is not well. Something's wrong with Donald Trump. He's shaky, weak.
All right. So the aspects of his not wellness that they're talking about here, shaky and weak, these are indications of physical decline, right? But frankly, I think if you look at the wholeness of his presidency, if all that was wrong with Trump is that he was physically shaky and weak, that wouldn't be such a terrible thing. There are many millions of people in this country that are shaky and weak physically, but totally fine mentally, emotionally, etc. So, but in any event, let's continue.
Trouble speaking, trouble walking. So,
well, trouble speaking certainly would be a problem for a president, but evidently he has not much trouble speaking when he's in front of a crowd and he's getting lots of love and feedback, and he can play his loops of grievance that are all, so to speak, burned into his brain. But when he does have trouble speaking, it's when he has to be reading a teleprompter, which are words that someone else wrote for him, because he can't come up with rational, cogent, coherent, intelligent words in the moment on his own. So when he's forced to act like he's relatively sane and normal and smart and informed, he can only do that when he's reading someone else's words. And in those situations, it's pretty obvious that he has, shall we say, major deficits. So here we go with a little bit more.
So why aren't we talking about this? And why isn't the press covering Trump's secretive midnight run to Walter Reed Medical Center? Why do so many reporters who cover the White House pretend that...
Okay, so it's the other thing that's clear is it's true. The press has gotten used to Trump being lying, to Trump lying and not coming out with the full truth about his real physical health. It's clear that his doctor's reports are doctored, going back to that the guy with the white coat that's going to come up from New York who admitted that he wrote basically false reports, and that other doctor that Trump had in the White House, the Navy guy who basically claimed Trump was some kind of youthful, immortal, perfect specimen, which is clear BS, right? And if this was any other president in any other time, the story of his physical health and the cover-up of that would be front page all the time. But with Trump, that story fades into the background because there are literally hundreds and hundreds of other stories and situations and instances that he does and says utterly outrageous, despicable, extreme, horrific things. And his health gets lost in the background because we just assume that he lies about everything and we're used to it. We've become calloused to his lies. Now this bit here, I'm going to rewind a little bit and play this over because this is really interesting and it's not really covered. Okay, let's go hit play.
The White House pretend they can't see Trump's decline.
Okay, that little bit there, where there are a few possibilities, right? So a tissue or a napkin or something fell out of the left pants leg of Trump as he's walking up the steps into the airplane, right? Air Force One, shall we say? So there's again a few possibilities. Maybe he had that in his pocket, and he had a hole in his pocket, and somehow that white piece of paper or napkin or tissue, whatever, migrated through the hole in his pocket, down his pant leg, and coming out as he walked up the steps, which means it must have taken, I don't know, 4 or 5 minutes. Who knows how long it took to happen, but that's one possibility. The other possibility is that he had something perhaps in his underwear that was put there to make him more comfortable, or to maybe catch some undesired liquids that may have been coming through. Who knows? But the explanation for why that tissue or that napkin or whatever the handkerchief came through his pant leg, that was never explained or looked into. It's just sort of, it's a question that sits there. And in anybody else, who cares? It's just, it's not that big of a deal. But this is the President of the United States walking up to Air Force One, and that happens. Can you imagine the uproar that would ensue if Joe Biden had an episode like that as he walked up the steps into an airplane? Can you imagine how the Republicans would be running that 3 or 4 second clip 24/7, nonstop, questioning his health and his well-being and his judgment? But none of that exists with Trump. I mean, yeah, thank God that the Lincoln Project, these are Republicans, and I guess they know how to do that kind of stuff, right? And frankly, I don't even think it's negative campaigning to point that out. There are millions and millions and millions of older men who probably have similar problems, and there's nothing terrible about that. That's just, life, I guess. But Trump, the issue with Trump is not that he really, in my opinion, has physical problems. For a guy in his mid-70s, he probably is, given his diet and everything else, he probably is quite healthy, right? I mean, I don't think that he's going to fall apart anytime soon physically. But the biggest problem with him is that he cannot face reality. He cannot and will not admit to being anything less than pretty much perfect. And in a president of the United States, that's more than just a character flaw. That's a threat to our national security, right? That's a threat to our lives, to have a president who can't even admit that maybe he dribbles a little bit and uses a piece of tissue to absorb it, and somehow that got loose from his diaper or whatever the hell he uses. Anyway, because that one little bit is so telling, and I'm going to just play it again and then go through the rest of this. And
the most powerful decline. The most powerful office in the world needs decline. The most powerful office. And they can't see Trump's decline. The most powerful office in the world needs more than a weak, unfit, shaky president. Trump doesn't have the strength to lead, nor the...
Now, who needs 2 hands, right, to lift a half-empty water, right, plastic bottle of water to your mouth? That couldn't have weighed more than 4, 5, 6 ounces at most. And he was in his right hand, but he had to use his left hand to help him do it. Let's go back, and here we go.
doesn't have the strength to lead, nor the character to admit it.
Now, the character to admit it. That little clip of him shaking like that wasn't really about strength, right? It was about character, because when that was made, it was during the campaign. He wasn't even president when that little segment was taped. We're going to come back to it, right? He's running for president, and he has the unmitigated, horrific nerve to ridicule and make fun of a New York Times reporter who has a physical disability that evidently makes him shake like that, right? And because Trump didn't like what the reporter was reporting, he chose to ridicule him based on that superficial characteristic. That's the epitome, the essence, the spot-on example of an ad hominem attack, right? You can't attack the person on the merits, so you attack the person on some kind of a direct low blow like that. That alone, that one simple thing alone, and that's one of literally probably thousands of instances that could be dug up on Trump, but that alone should have disqualified him from being elected. But I guess the Democrats just didn't know, or still don't know, how to properly and how to effectively call Trump out effectively and puncture that carapace of sickness that permeates him, and expose that to the general public and make them ashamed to support him. Because again, if a Democrat, right, had done anything this insane, this ugly, this stupid, this brutal, this vicious, this nasty, you can be sure that this one little clip, this one little 3-second clip of a Democrat making fun of a reporter like this, that the Republicans would have used it to totally destroy that person. They would have had to resign and go live in a shack for years and hide their heads in shame. But with Trump, not only is there no shame and no accountability, but his followers just don't care, because they've never been held to account themselves for why they're backing something like this. Okay.
Admit it. We're not doctors, but we're not.
Yeah, there was that doctor that did the false medical reports. Again, that alone should be enough to have a demand for a truly independent medical examination of Trump. Truly independent, right? And not government doctors or people that he can control and cajole and intimidate and corrupt. Anyway, here we go. A little more.
We're not blind. It's time we talk about this. Trump is not well.
Okay. And there's the Lincoln Project, and all credit to them for having made this ad. And again, it's just mind-boggling that it takes a Republican group of people to do this kind of advertising, which is 100% factual and direct and simple and easy to understand, and yet it is utterly, totally damning and revelatory of pretty much the essence of what's wrong with Donald Trump. And his lack of wellness goes far, far, far beyond the physical. I wish that was all that was wrong with this guy. We could handle that, but it goes far beyond that. The ad isn't even really touching on narcissistic personality disorder, right? Malignant, being a malignant narcissist, and what that really means and the implications of that. And we've been living with it now for 3.5 years with this sicko in the White House. And it's a damn shame. It's a damn shame. Hundreds of thousands of people will be dead from this virus who didn't have to be dead. and many millions more will have become ill, and probably to some degree, many of them will be suffering lifelong deficits, and the cost to our economy, literally, at least, I think it's up to $6 or $7 trillion now, $1 trillion, that most of which may not have been needed to have been spent, or I should say borrowed from future taxpayers, right? In order to compensate mostly very well-off people and very well-off corporations and financial sectors for their losses during this pandemic. It's insane. I mean, I could go on yakking here for a long time, and I'm not going to do that. I'll stop here. But this ad really says it all. I'm going to go back to the beginning. What's 45
Something's
seconds
wrong.
at this point? I'm going to play it again. Play it again.
Something's wrong with Donald Trump. He's shaky, weak, trouble speaking, trouble walking. So why aren't we talking about this? And why isn't the press covering Trump's secretive midnight run to Walter Reed Medical Center? Why do so many reporters who cover the White House pretend they can't see Trump's decline? The most powerful office in the world needs more than a weak, unfit, shaky president. Trump doesn't have the strength to lead, nor the character to admit it. We're not doctors, but we're not blind. It's time we talk about this. Trump is not well.
All right, so that's it. And one little closing line that occurs to me. It's more than about him not having the strength to lead or the character to admit it. I think that perhaps the deeper question is, why are so many people so weak that they follow this man? What is it in them that makes them so vulnerable to his lies, his blatant lies, lack of character, and corrupt nature? In a society with a healthy body politic where people were informed and alert and attentive and well educated, somebody like Trump, my sense would that in that kind of society, he would be an object of pity, someone who would be clearly treated as being in need of help. The man is sick in many ways and on many levels. He needs our compassion. He doesn't need for anybody to be following him in his delusional, pathological idiocy. It's bizarre and insane. All right, we'll shut up now. Really, I promise. Bye.